It was one of those nights when the city felt like it belonged to someone else. Wealthy folks sipping champagne behind glass, while the rest of us walked by in the rain. And that's when he showed up. A man in a torn coat beard down to his chest, dripping water onto the marble floor of a restaurant called the Gilded Spoon. The place was Manhattan's pride 3-month waitlist appetizers priced like rent checks. Folks stopped mid-laugh, phones raised, ready to record. "Excuse me," he said, voice softer than you'd expect. Steady almost. Refined. "I noticed you've got a Steinway in the corner. If I play one song, could I have a plate of food?" You'd think he'd asked for the keys to Fort Knox. The owner, Charles Whitman, turned redder than the wine in his hand. "Play, you get security. Now." And the crowd, oh, they laughed. A woman in a Versace gown sneered. "What'll it be? Chopsticks." Mary had a little lamb perfume sprayed into the air like bug repellent. Phones zoomed in, but the old man didn't flinch. His eyes locked on that piano like it was an old friend. He whispered, "I know every Chopin etude. I've played Rachmaninoff's Third more times than I can count." Charles barked louder. "I'm the King of England, then." The whole place roared. Security dragged him toward the door, but before they shoved him out, he muttered, "Music doesn't care where you sleep. It only cares about truth." The door slammed. And just like that, Marcus Reed was gone. Now here's what nobody in that room knew under bridges and in shelters. Marcus wasn't just the piano bum. He was teaching kids music with buckets and bottles, showing them how the rain on rooftops made its own rhythm. One boy in particular, Tommy, 8 years old, too thin for his coat, followed Marcus like a shadow. "You're famous, Mr. Marcus," he'd say, holding up a cracked phone with a viral clip of Marcus being mocked. Millions of views, all cruel. Marcus would smile bitterly. "Fame is just other people knowing your name. It don't mean a thing if you don't know yourself." But Tommy saw through him. "Then why don't you show them? Show them who you really are." Marcus always shook his head, until the night Tommy coughed blood into his hand. That's when Marcus made a promise one he had no idea how to keep. He dragged that boy through the freezing streets straight to the Gilded Spoon's grand anniversary gala. Inside, gowns shimmered, tuxedos gleamed, champagne flowed like water. At the door stood Victoria Sloan, the event planner, with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She spotted Marcus and Tommy and shrieked, "Security, please," Marcus begged, voice breaking for the first time. "This child is sick. Let me play just one song. I'll leave after. Just help him." Out came Charles again, drunk on power. "You got guts, old man. I warned you. Now you're parading a sick kid as a prop. Pathetic." He pulled out his phone, already live streaming. But then a voice from the crowd. Deep calm, unmistakable authority. "Hold on." Detective Samuel Johnson, NYPD, had just arrived on security detail. He looked at Marcus. Really looked. Name, he asked. "Marcus Reed." The detective froze. "You played at my mother's funeral. 2003. Debussy's Clair de Lune. You did it for free. Said music teachers were the real musicians." The room went still. Guests glanced between their phones and Marcus trying to reconcile the legend with the man in rags. Johnson turned to Charles. "You're letting him play. One song. Or I'll shut this down myself." And so Marcus sat at that piano. His left hand was swollen from infection, trembling. Phones were up, ready to capture his failure. Charles grinned, whispering, "This'll be the final humiliation." Then Marcus began. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's Second didn't just echo, they poured like a storm breaking open. The chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. Champagne glasses stilled. Even the waiters froze. Marcus's hands, scarred, twisted, damaged, moved with impossible grace. For 7 minutes, he wasn't a beggar or a joke or a man in rags. He was what he'd always been, a master. When the last note hung in the air, silence smothered the room. Then a single clap broke it. An elegant woman stepped forward, tears streaming. "Bravo, Marcus." Gasps rippled Dr. Eleanor Baptiste, head of Juilliard's piano department. She turned on the crowd, voice like fire. "Do you know who you mocked? This man changed classical music. He was the first Black American to win the Tchaikovsky competition. His recordings are in your textbooks. And you," She pointed at Charles, at Victoria. At all of them, you laughed. Phones now lit up with searches. Photos of young Marcus in tuxedos shaking hands with presidents gracing magazine covers. The internet exploded. Marcus Reed trending worldwide. Charles went pale. Victoria lowered her phone, mascara streaking. The mayor himself had arrived speechless. Marcus stood unsteady. Tommy needs a hospital. And just like that, he walked out carrying the boy, leaving the glittering room in ruins. The fallout was swift. By morning, the Gilded Spoon was trending for all the wrong reasons. The restaurant that refused to feed a legend. Reservations canceled, investors pulled out. Charles gave a tearful apology no one believed. Victoria's clients vanished overnight. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in a hospital room beside Tommy, who was finally getting the care he needed. Reporters begged for interviews. Orchestras offered comebacks. Steinway promised a new piano. Marcus shook his head at it all. I don't want a stage for myself. I want the invisible to be seen. Every person written off because they don't fit the package. Every genius sleeping under a bridge. Every kid told they don't belong. 6 months later, he got his wish. Lincoln Center sold out. Half the seats free for anyone. No dress code, no velvet ropes. Just people, janitors next to judges, kids from the Bronx beside billionaires. And front row Tommy in his first suit clapping harder than anyone. Marcus walked out not in a tux, just a plain black suit. He sat at the Steinway, placed his hands on the keys, and instead of Chopin or Rachmaninoff, he began with a simple tune he once taught Tommy, using bottles of water under a bridge. One by one, his homeless students joined him on stage with buckets, bottles, even a broken violin patched with duct tape. Security moved, but the director waved them off. And then magic. Street rhythm and classical melody, chaos and beauty merging into something brand new. When Marcus's hand cramped, Tommy stood up and sang the melody aloud. The crowd joined in. 3,000 voices carried what one man's damaged hand could not. And as the last note faded, the ovation rose like thunder. But Marcus wasn't smiling at the applause. He was looking at Tommy, at the kids beside him, at the janitors and housekeepers in the crowd. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. Now here's the question, friend, the one I'll leave you with. Why did it take titles and trophies for them to see his humanity? Why wasn't hunger enough? Why isn't being human ever enough? Tell me what you think. Is society too blinded by money and image to see worth in the people right in front of us? Have you ever witnessed someone dismissed only to later prove they were so much more? Drop your thoughts in the comments, rate this story out of 10. And if you believe music or dignity belongs to everyone, share this video so the world remembers Marcus Reed.